Will the real Slim Shady please stand up? I repeat. Uh, Guess who's back? It's day 3 in a row of just me, because Riker is having the time of his life on a skiing trip. But I asked him to send me over his picks, so I'll be going over that today with comments on each of the games, uh, going over all of Sunday and then Monday night. Um, Went over Thursday, did the reaction video for that. Unfortunately, starting off with a loss for this week, but it is what it is. We'll move on. And Sunday games, starting off, we have the Texans at the Jets. The money line is minus 205 in favor of the Texans, plus 170 in favor of the Jets. And then the spread is Texans minus 3.5. I wrote this up a couple days ago for the Thursday video, so the odds may have changed in the meantime, but I'm going to go off of what I have here. Just real quick checking to see if they have changed or not. Let's see. Well, they're slightly different, but the spread is the same. So, alright, the Texans, we have C.J. Stroud continuing to make a statement. Last week he threw for 274 yards and a touchdown. Unfortunately, they did lose Tank Dell. It doesn't look too great, but Nico Collins stepped up to the part with 9 catches for 191 yards and a touchdown. That guy balled out. He had a game, and it clicked, obviously, because the Texans won. So they're able to keep making plays despite missing out on their wide receiver. But Pearson Singletary looked good in the run game. I would expect this offense to keep up the pace, or at the very least transition to a bit more on the ground when facing this Jets defense. We know that they're pretty good against the wide receivers and the quarterback through the air, but running the ball still works. So onto the Jets. I didn't think it would get worse, but disappointing matchup against the Falcons last weekend. Tim Boyle threw for less than 150 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. I really hate to say it, but I'm starting to realize that Zach Wilson was the best option without Rodgers, as much as he is not a good quarterback. Rodgers was their number one go-to, so I guess they didn't plan on working with anyone else, unfortunately. But it's a nightmare scenario in that quarterback room right now. The run game last weekend was lacking as well. Breece Hall, got to correct myself from last week. I said Bryce. Sorry about that. Breece Hall had more receiving yards than rushing, and this team is crumbling, and their defense has barely been up to par with what we've seen in earlier games of the season. So I went over it in the previous video. The wheel picked the Texans, and Riker chose the Texans as well. The next game, we have the Rams at the Ravens. The money line is plus 280 for the Rams, minus 355 for the Ravens, and the spread is minus 7.5 for the Ravens. The Rams had themselves a game last week against the Browns. Stafford had 279 yards and 3 passing touchdowns. Kyren Williams was a workhorse in the run game. He had 88 yards and a rushing touchdown. Puka shows up once again with a combined 139 yards rushing and receiving. He had a touchdown. And then Cooper Kupp was sort of on the back burner this game, but also came away with a touchdown. And then the third of the passing touchdowns was thrown to Demarcus Robinson. He had quite a few yards too. The Rams will need another game like this if they want to keep up with the Ravens, because of this Ravens defense, and their offense just keeps the pedal to the metal too. Fresh off a bye week, these Ravens should be ready to go, but we are expecting a similar play style as we've seen before. Strong defense with an all-gas, no-brakes offense to match. Lamar Jackson currently has 2,618 yards and 13 passing touchdowns, only 5 interceptions and 574. Only 5 interceptions through the air for this on the season. And then on the ground, he has 574 yards and 5 rushing touchdowns this season. Coming off the bye week, this game is likely to be an offensive shootout until one of these teams makes a defensive stop and pulls ahead. The wheel chose the Ravens, and Riker agrees, also picking the Ravens here. I'm trying to move a little quickly through this just because I already did half of it going over like the wheel picks on Thursday. Next game, we have the Panthers at the Saints. Money line is plus 190 Panthers, minus 230 Saints. Spread is -5 in favor of the Saints. The Panthers did not win. They're now standing at 1-11. But Bryce Young looked okay through the air. He had 178 yards, 1 interception. But the running back, Chuba Hubbard, had himself a game. 104 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Unfortunately, I think it's too late to win out. I haven't seen anything posted or tweeted about it, but you never know which teams they will beat in the remaining weeks. Unfortunately, I don't think the Saints are going to be one of them. But on the Saints side, last week Derek Carr threw for 226, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but he's listed questionable for this week's game. I'm going to quickly check and see if that is still the case, but the risk of another injury is high as he's dealt with ankle, shoulder, 2 concussions this season. Winston and Hill both look to be suitable. In the meantime, Hill had 59 rushing and 15 receiving, while Olave had 119 receiving and 5 catches, which is an impressive showing from this wide receiver. This offense continues to pull the right strings, putting up an average of 20 points in the past 5 weeks. They're likely to walk away with a win this week. Derek Carr, real quick. He is still questionable. Ribs and right shoulder. Does not carry an injury designation into Sunday's matchup. He cleared concussion protocol late on Friday, but today he was announced. Yeah, he was upgraded. Okay. Yeah. So he's questionable, but will be able to play, I guess is how it stands. We'll pick the Saints. Riker also picks the Saints. Excuse me. Moving on to the Colts at the Bengals. The money line has been like real close between each of these two games. Every time I check, it kind of flip-flops. 2 teams. What I have now is what I have written down from the other day is -112 Colts, -108 Bengals. I checked yesterday and they were flipped. Same numbers, just for the other team. And then now it is at +110 Colts, -130 Bengals. So this game has been really close, projected to be close all week. But we'll have to see how it goes. At the time that I wrote this up, it was -1 in favor of the Colts for the spread, but now it is -2 in favor of the Bengals. Starting with the Colts, Gardner Minshew had a game, 312 yards, 2 touchdowns, really balled out. Pittman Jr. and Alec Pierce both had over 100 yards and a touchdown each. The run game did not look as great. Zach Moss only had 51, no touchdowns. If this offense keeps the passing game like they had it last week and they're able to bring back the run game, they should not have any problems this week in Cincinnati. On the other side of this game, the Bengals, last week they had an impressive game. Backup quarterback Jake Browning threw for 354 and 1 touchdown. Joe Mixon ran the ball for 68 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he caught for 49. Jamar Chase also had a baller game. He had 114 receiving, a touchdown, and that 1 touchdown came from a 76-yard play on a 3rd and 2. So, like it caught it kind of like middle range-ish. Like it wasn't a deep pass, but he beat the defender and he kept running, and it was great. It was really cool to watch. We also saw an attempt at a trick play in which Tyler Boyd threw an interception, so that's unfortunate. But this offense looked amazing, and they will need this to roll over into this game's week if they want to keep putting tallies in the win column. The wheel picked the Bengals, and Riker has also chosen the Bengals. Moving into the Bucks at the Falcons. Money line was +105 Bucks, -125 Falcons. Spread was -1.5 in favor of the Falcons. On I'm gonna keep rolling with what I have here. I'm not checking the updated things as I go. But the Bucks unsurprisingly beat the Panthers, but the score was much closer than expected at a final score of 21-18. Baker threw for 202, one touchdown, one interception. Mike Evans and Rashad White carried this offense with 162 yards from Mike and 106 yards combined or receiving and rushing for White, and they both had a touchdown. The Falcons last week, their win was tough to watch. Desmond Ridder only threw for 121. He did have a touchdown. And Bijan only had 53 rushing yards. Their defense was able to get an interception and 4 sacks, but all around this was a very unimpressive game. Moving forward, they're likely to make a turnaround this week as it's a division matchup. Division matchups usually go a lot harder than people expect them to. And both teams are still in the hunt for winning the division, so this is going to be a big game for both of these teams. In their previous matchup, the score was 16-13 Falcons. Both quarterbacks threw for over 250. Both teams had a very even time of possession. This matchup was during Bijan's down streak, though, so it'll be interesting to see how much changes compared to their matchup in Week 7. Now that Bijan's been running the ball a lot more, Desmond Ridder's kind of not up to the same standard as he was the last matchup, but, maybe things will change. Baker's been pretty consistent since then, so this is going to be a good matchup. I feel like this will be an exciting game to watch. The wheel picked the Falcons, and Riker says the Bucks are going to take it on this one. Moving on, I'm just going to roll through these. I'm going fast, sorry. The Jags at the Browns, plus 140. Jags, minus 166. Browns minus 3.5 was the spread. The Jags lost a close game. It was upsetting for this Jacksonville team, and so was losing their star quarterback to an injury caused by his own lineman. Lawrence suffered a high ankle sprain towards the end of the game and looked visibly upset while walking off the field and into the tunnel. Also, why didn't they get him a cart? Like he walked like he was getting carried the whole way there. Doesn't make any sense. Should have put him on a cart. But the fact that he was walking means that it was not very severe. So. In the game against the Bengals, he threw for 258 and 2 touchdowns. Etienne led the run game with 45 yards, kind of lacking compared to what he usually does. But and then Evan Ingram led the receivers with 82 yards and a touchdown, followed by Zay Jones with 78. This offense looked good, but was narrowly beat out in overtime. On the other side of this game, the Browns last week. Oh boy, this backup quarterback, Joe Flacco. Never thought I'd see him play again, but here we are. So he threw for 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He looked promising at the quarterback position. The passing game looked pretty good. I'm unsure whether or not they'll be able to keep this up because on the other side of the ball, their defense did not look to be all there after letting up 36 points. We haven't seen that happen to them pretty much all season. And that will have to change if they want to stay in this one with the Jags, because we know the Jags are good at putting up points, and their running back always finds the end zone at some point. Funny I say that, but he didn't have one last weekend. The wheel picked the Jags. Riker also picks the Jags. Next on the list, we have the Lions at the Bears. Minus 180 for the Lions, plus 150 for the Bears. Lions are minus 3.5 spread at the time. Lions last week pulled off a 33-28 win over the Saints. Jared Goff threw for 213 and 2 touchdowns. The run game also looked great. Both Gibbs and Montgomery had over 55 rushing, and there were 2 rushing touchdowns coming from Montgomery. And Jamison Williams. They both had 1. Sam Laporta had 9 receptions for 140 yards and a touchdown. That man balled out. That was crazy. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown had 49 and a touchdown. And then the rest of the offense looked great. Likely continue. This is a division matchup. As I said, these are always kind of good games to watch. They always are very competitive here. Coming off of a bye week, the Bears team should be well rested and ready to play. Looking at this previous matchup of this season, the final score was 31-26 Lions. Fields threw for 169 and a touchdown, which is unimpressive as a quarterback. for passing stats, but he rushed for 104, which was wild. And then DJ Moore was the favorite target of that game. He had 96 yards and a touchdown. If the Bears' offense can keep up with the Lions, this game will be just as close as the last time when they met in Week 11. I'm excited for this one. It's going to be a very competitive division matchup. I know the Bears don't really stand a chance at getting in, but if they can throw a tally in the loss column for the Lions, that would be really good for them. The wheel picked the Bears. Talked about that already. Obviously, they always pick the Bears. And then Riker says the Lions. I agree. Following that, we have the Seahawks at the 49ers. Does this get into the 4 o'clock games? It does. Okay. First of the 4 o'clock games, we have the Seahawks at the 49ers. Money line is plus 650 for the Seahawks and minus 1,000 for the 49ers as of right now. The spread is minus 13.5. Last week, the Seahawks had an impressive game. We talked about it in last week's video already because we got a late start to recording, but just a quick recap. It was 41-35, the highest scoring primetime game all season. DK had 6 catches, 134 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Really looked like the MVP for that game against the Cowboys last Thursday, or the Thursday before. If they want to stand a chance against the 49ers powerhouse of an offense, they will need a repeat of that game. Their offense needs to click. Their defense needs to make a couple of good stops. But the 49ers continue to blow teams out of the water following their bye week. Last week they beat the Eagles 42-19. Purdy threw for 314, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions. He looked great. That was a fantastic game for that offense. Christian McCaffrey had 93 rushing yards and a touchdown. Debo had 116 receiving. Kittle had 68, and Brandon Ayuk had 46. This offense looked incredible, and it was no surprise that they were able to win. This was a much-needed rematch following last season's playoff game, and they should easily walk away with a win this week. But the score may be closer than expected if Seattle can perform like they did against the Cowboys. The wheel picked the 49ers. Riker also picked the 49ers, and I agree. Next, we have the Vikings at the Raiders. The spread and the money lines are the same. They haven't changed. Vikings is minus 155. Raiders is plus 130. The Vikings are minus 3 for the spread favorite. The Vikings bye week seemed much needed. After Dobbs had 2 very unmemorable games back-to-back. Coming into this week, we're hoping to see better things on offense with the long-awaited return of Justin Jefferson, who I have not checked to see if he's listed as active or not. Justin Jefferson is healthy and expected to play. Hasn't played since week 5 due to a hamstring injury, but appears to be on the verge of a return against the Raiders in week 14. So this will be exciting. Regardless, this offense is likely to make a turnaround after the time off, and especially with Dobbs and Jefferson. The 2 of them should click really well. I'm looking forward to watching this game. The Raiders, also off of a division loss followed by a bye week, because the Raiders lost to the Chiefs, then went into their bye. The Vikings lost to the Bears and then went into their bye. That's how that worked. The Raiders offense has been scrambling pretty much all season. We'll have to see how much of a difference taking their bye week will make. This is likely going to be a very even matchup, unless Jefferson is able to come back. Okay, so now that he is back, the Raiders are probably going to get blown out. It might be a little closer than expected because they're both coming off of a bye week, but, closer than I expect it to be. It is still projected to only be a 3-point game. The wheel picked the Vikings. Riker and I both agree. Following that, we have the Broncos at the Chargers. Plus 120 Broncos, minus 142 Chargers, and then the Chargers spread is minus 2.5. Last week, Russell Wilson only threw for 186 yards because he threw 3 interceptions. He probably would have thrown for more if he was able to make the passes, but unfortunately he did not. These turnovers were costly, and the result of the game shows this. The Broncos fall off of their winning streak, but are likely an even matchup against the Chargers at this point in the season. Sutton and Judy make up the majority of the receiving yardage, they both combined for 128 out of the 186, and then one touchdown. On the ground, Javonte Williams only beat out Russell Wilson as the number one rusher by 2 yards. Williams had 46 yards in 13 attempts, and Russell Wilson had 44 yards in 10 attempts. It works. I mean, if you can move the ball with the quarterback and with the running back, but it's not a good look when the quarterback is the second best rusher, and for both of them to only have like 40 yards. It's not a great look, but their offense is probably going to make a turnaround. It's a division matchup, and they're looking to be pretty even. So, Chargers. It was a pathetic game. I really don't know what the hell that was. 6-0 against the Patriots. Thank God I didn't watch that garbage game. Justin Herbert had an average game with 212 yards in the air, but the run game was severely shut down. None of the running backs had more than 20 yards on the ground, which is a testament to how good the Patriots' run defense is, which I probably should not have underestimated for the Thursday game. But we're not going to talk about it. Through the air, Allen and Johnston had over 50, but no points to show for a very upsetting result. This team will need a much better game if they want to keep winning, because that's not going to fly against this Broncos team, who we know have been able to put up a lot of points in the past 5 or 6 weeks. The wheel picks the Chargers, and Riker disagrees. He's taking the Broncos here. Okay. I was going to say Chargers, but I guess the Broncos are probably on a hotter streak than the Chargers at this point. It's still probably going to be an even matchup. We'll see how it goes. Now for the one that I really am looking forward to. We have the Bills at the Chiefs. This is like playoff preview here. Obviously the Bills have to make it, but playoff preview game. Fresh off a bye week, and before that gave the Eagles a hell of a time, making them really work for the win. The Bills are picking back up with another one of the hardest games in their schedule. Back-to-back games, Eagles and Chiefs, and the next week with the Cowboys, the hardest stretch on the schedule. Josh Allen is coming into this game with 3,214 passing yards, 24 passing touchdowns, 13 interceptions, all through the air, and then 342 rushing yards and 9 rushing touchdowns. This guy's putting up a ton of numbers, and it's sad to see that the only thing that people care about is the 13 interceptions. Even if the Bills don't make the playoffs, this is a playoff preview game for sure, and likely to be the best game to watch all weekend, next to the Seahawks and 49ers and the Eagles and Cowboys games. But anyways, these are all going to be like high caliber games for sure. On the other side of this game, the Chiefs are on fraud watch right now. Even with the aid of the refs and Taylor Swift in attendance, they lose 27-19 against the Packers. The Chiefs sold this game 100%. Even though Mahomes threw for 210, Pacheco ran for 110, and Kelsey had 81, it was all for nothing. If the Chiefs don't pull themselves together or pay the refs more, then they're going to throw this game away too. But we all know that won't be the case, as the Bills-Chiefs matchups are always the games of the season. Whether that be regular season or postseason, that is always a game to watch. One of the best things to come out of the Bills-Chiefs matchups is the memes about screw the Super Bowl, let's do 7 games of the Bills and Chiefs. Always an exciting matchup. Should expect nothing less this weekend. We'll pick the Bills, and obviously Riker and I are choosing the Bills on top of that. Following that, we have the Eagles at the Cowboys. The money line is plus 150 Eagles, minus 180 Cowboys. In their last matchup, obviously the tables were turned the other direction, where the Eagles were favored, but following their loss in a devastating fashion against the 49ers, they are no longer favorites. The Cowboys had a minus 3.5 spread. The Eagles, another team on fraud watch. Someone makes sure that Philly hasn't burned to the ground. Back-to-back weeks, the Eagles look beatable. Jalen Hurts threw for 298 and a touchdown, which was impressive, but not enough to get them the win. Their run game was completely shut down. Jalen Hurts was the leading rusher with 20 yards, and unsurprisingly a touchdown thanks to the tush push. But A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith both showed up with 114 and 96 receiving yards, but even so, it was not enough. If their offense returns to normal, they will stay in this with the Cowboys, but they seem to be more than ready for this division matchup. On behalf of the Cowboys, last week, I talked about it, but Dak threw for 299, 3 touchdowns. CD had 116 yards. Pollard had 68 and a touchdown, 68 rushing and a touchdown on Thursday. This week, playing the Eagles, they will need to keep it up. After the previous matchup, I think the Cowboys will be ready, and after watching the 49ers, we know it's possible to keep the Eagles down. This game is going to be exciting for sure. The wheel picked the Eagles, and Riker picks the Cowboys. Because we have contrasting opinions between Riker and the wheel, it doesn't matter what I pick because both of them get covered. But I do think the Eagles might upset the Cowboys here. Going to be a very close game. Where was I? Packers at Giants. Money line is minus 298 Packers, plus 240 for the Giants. The Packers minus 6.5 spread. I feel like these numbers are a little inflated because the Packers just beat the Chiefs. Surprisingly, the Packers upset the Chiefs. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but Jordan Love is looking like the new Rodgers. Maybe. At the very least, he'll end up at the Jets in 10 years. So, Jordan Love threw for 267 and 3 touchdowns, and he really had himself a game. He looked good. The run game looked promising. A.J. Dillon had 73. And then Romeo Doubs looked great. He had 72, but unfortunately no touchdowns. 2 touchdowns and 71 yards for Christian Watson. If the Packers maintain this level of offense, then they should have no problem against the Giants. On the Giants side of things, they are coming off of a bye week. Hopefully everyone is rested and ready to play. Still a mess of an offense, unfortunately, and a lackluster defense going into the bye week, so hoping for the best with this game. Though I will say Tommy DeVito makes a nice fit at quarterback. The Giants will need a great game this week if they want to beat the Packers. The wheel chose the Packers. Riker and I agree. Both taking the Packers there. All right, last game. I didn't do the thing. I forgot to do the thing because I forgot that there were 2 Monday Night Football games. Monday Night Football. Titans at Dolphins is the second Monday night game. 575 money line for the Titans. 850 for the Dolphins. I want to see if that has changed in the past couple of days. Nope, still the same. Very close to the same. It's 550 and minus 800. Very close. On behalf of the Titans, Will Levis looked better last week. He had 224 yards passing, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Derrick Henry had over 100 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Tyjae Spears had 75 yards as well. Run game looked good. The Titans were able to pick up whatever slack. Titans' run game was able to pick up whatever slack was left by the receivers. DeAndre Hopkins had 75 and a touchdown. Okonkwo with 62. This team really seemed to click a lot better than we've seen the past few weeks, but they'll have to double down and do even better against the Dolphins in Miami this week if they want to stand a chance. And they obviously are below 500, so that puts the pressure on even more. The last week game went exactly as expected, a lot to a little, and against a below 500 team. This week should be the same thing, although the Titans have slightly better run defense than the Commanders. A-Chain, again, fell below expectations in last week's game against the Commanders, but it was only his second week back from IR. Hopefully things look better for him this week. Tua, Hill, Waddle, and Mostert continue to tear up defenses and put a ton of points on the board. Total yardage of over 400 and a score of 45 makes this team really, really hard to beat, and especially to keep up with them. If their defense is able to make a few stops this game, it should be another win, another easy win for them. The wheel picked the Dolphins. Riker and I obviously agree. You would be wrong to pick a under 500 team to beat the Dolphins this season. Yeah, none of the games are even close, so I don't have anything to compare to. But yeah, that wraps everything up. Obviously, the numbers have changed a little bit. I didn't go over all of the changes, but for the most part, the spreads are the same. None of them switched sides except for the Bengals game. The rest of them, everybody's still favored, kind of varying by like half a point. In the time that I finished talking about the rest of the games, the Bengals spread got changed to -2.5. So like little changes differ from what I said, what I had written from the other day. But yeah, it's going to be a pretty action-packed weekend of football. Two Monday night games is exciting. Philly at Dallas for Sunday night. Four really good 4 o'clock games, and then the 1 o'clock games you can pick and choose. They're all going to be pretty good matchups. So that's it for the week 14. That wraps everything up. I think I covered everything in the video from Thursday. I got all the wheel picks. I went over them again today. We went over our picks today. Money lines, spreads. If there's anything I'll miss, I'll edit and post. So see you guys next week when we talk about week 15 matchups. See ya.